Hey everybody, this is Perch. Got a mail here about uniqueness. Now we've talked about this before, the idea of the Spider-Verse and dozens of versions of the same character. So I think my stance on this is pretty clear. But you were once talked a little bit more about it. And this time, kind of more of the a different take on the multiverse. So here you go. But first, there's two questions in this one. So you're cheating, but that's okay. We'll answer both. Uh, Hey, Perch. I hope you're doing well and on the road to recovery. Thank you very much. Voice still sounds screwy, but it comes and goes. It's like my voice has like a 10-minute timer on it, or some time, and it hits that timer, and then suddenly my voice gets weird. But it will get better. Anyway, um, there you go. I had a question about the multiverse, but first I wanted to ask you if you saw the recent controversy involving Joe Glass, the comic writer, and his comments about wanting to burn down a turf conference that turned out to be a feminist conference. It looks like he's locked his account and maybe he's done. Maybe he's done? Question mark. Okay. What do you think about this? And is this just another case of creators not knowing what they're saying on Twitter? Um, all right. So I missed the initial run of this controversy, and then I got it. So basically, Um, Joe Glass is a comic writer. Does indie stuff. Mainly self publishes, I think, a lot of his work, or kind of does that. Queer creator, and kind of leads with that. A lot of his characters are queer. He wrote for Bleeding Cool for a while. I remember one of his very, very early reviews was along the lines of, "I don't know anything about this character, but I can say this is the best comic this character's ever been in." And people got after him for a lot of other things. He went in real hard on the CG battles and all that, and was one of those, people who are like, "Everything is great, I need money. Everything is great, I need money," kind of people. Lots have been said online, but to me, it was that comment. I think it was for Miss Marvel or maybe Squirrel. It was one of the characters. Then when he was doing reviews for Bleeding Cool, I remember reading that. I'm like, well, I'm not. I have no interest in what this person has to say. Just because it was so absurd. The idea of like, I don't know this character, but the character makes all the right people mad. So this is the best comic they've ever made. It's like, what? It just, I don't know. I nope out pretty early if people say that. So then the rest of the stuff doesn't bother me as much because I've emotionally cut that cord a long time ago. Anyway, so basically. A feminist conference was coming to his town or something like that, and he posted like, first of all, he labeled it a turf convention, and then somebody came in and said, kind of, we should burn it down, or it'd be a shame if that burned down. And then Joe replied like, we don't know what hotel it's in yet, and so it was, but it was out in the public. So this is the kind of stuff that you see in DMs a lot, kind of this plotting to do something. And clearly, by the way, nobody's going to burn down any hotel. I'm sorry, they were not. No, don't post about liberals or deranged or any of that. No, but that's kind of the problem. It's tough guy talk. That is, it's just kind of it's gross, and it certainly does. It's that I'm going to label this a turf or a fascist or a Nazi or an SJW even. Yes, there are lots of people play this game. And they label that way, and then they feel content to just very casually throw that label around. It's like when people throw out races, like everybody's racist, everybody's a bigot. It's just, did you say that you didn't like, I don't know, some woman's performance in a movie? You're clearly a misogynist. So, it's that casual. That's what bothers me so much. I know there's been other videos about this, but the casual, like, I'm just going to throw out this term that is hateful at somebody very casually, just even a slight whiff of any of this stuff going on, and I'm gonna go turf. And then in doing so, it's like the disclaimer, it's like the legal protection notice, although it's definitely not legal, but it's like this. I'm gonna put up the shield, and then behind that shield, I'm gonna go ahead and indulge in every whacked out fantasy that I have in my mind. These people should be murdered, disappear from the earth, banned from the country, thrown in jail, dismembered, burned alive. That people feel very comfortable saying kind of the most sick shit, but because you're like, well, I'm saying this against turfs or Nazis or fascists or yes, SJWs, then it's that let me go ahead and dehumanize the person, and then off we go. So unfortunately, this is Twitter. And yeah, I mean, to your question, is this an example of creators saying things? Yeah, yeah, it's exactly it. And anyway, some bigger name feminist and the convention itself basically took notice, retweet, screenshotted it before the person could delete the tweet, which they locked their accounts. But then, with a very much larger following than Joe Glass, not other Joe, basically, posted, "Look at these guys wishing for us to burn alive." Which, when put in that perspective, yeah, you can kind of take yourself out of the moment, and looks pretty crazy. And then it was reported to the police, and the police are like, "Yeah, we're going to look into this," and that's where we are today. So the moral of the story is, hey, even if you think the person you're talking to is a turf, fashion, whatever it happens to be, maybe you shouldn't wish for them to be dead on a public forum. Maybe you shouldn't. Oh, it's just a joke. Yeah, I agree. It probably was just a joke, but turns out, burning people alive is not that funny of a joke. And so that, maybe just shut the fuck up, save yourself some problems, and don't let this hey, I need to hate people. I need to indulge in this, so I'm going to conveniently join a side and then throw labels at people and then just go out and be a raging asshole. If you're gonna be an asshole, like, have the courage to just be it. You don't need to, cower behind fancy labels to make yourself appear to be the good guy. No matter what you're saying, no matter what you're saying at all. Hey, let's go burn a bunch of people alive in their hotel and cause some property damage and murder. You are the bad guy. And, creators of comics, you should have a pretty clear idea of who the bad guy, good guy is. Anyway, second part to the mail. Let's go to it. That's that ugly. I don't even know what to say anymore. It's just predictable and sad. Anyway, my real question here was regarding the multiverse. And specifically, I always enjoyed reading the comics What If and the Elseworlds series for DC. Can you explain to me, though, why Marvel and DC decided to take What If stories and merge them into the main Marvel universe? Whereas different versions of characters was a special event, something unique and can be celebrated as a cool comic and an idea, now it's forced into the main continuity, making everything seem a little less special. That's my opinion anyway. What's your take on it? So, again, if you've listened to some of my videos, you know my take on it. My take on it is it's a bad idea. And it goes along the lines of, hey, Green Lantern is a little less special when there's, 500 of them and you can just throw a bunch of them into a meat grinder. And it doesn't matter because you've got, hundreds or thousands more. To some extent, by the way, Green Lantern is a bad example because the idea of the Green Lantern Corps is kind of the conceit of the whole book and the mythology and everything else. But it's still true that, like, by the time you get your, sixth, seventh, eighth Earth-based Green Lantern, it does take away from Hal Jordan and John Stewart. The same thing is true with Wonder Woman and Iron Man and Captain America's and all the rest. I mean, it's. I think that Marvel and the comics were handed a bit of a gift with Anthony Mackie. He's a good actor. He kind of big name. Getting a lot of popularity as the Falcon in the movie. He was cool. They wrote cool scenes for him. And I think there was a shining moment to let him be that cool character. And but they need to make him Captain America. Now, granted, Chris Evans is leaving, so you got to have somebody fill those shoes. So it makes more sense in the movies. In the comics, you just write him back. You can, like they've done, age him, de-age him, not spy him, bring him back. All that kind of stuff they do with Captain America. But the problem is, I think it's more valuable, personally, to have Captain America and the Falcon as two kind of creations running around being able to do things, rather than two flavors of Captain America. I think in my opinion, A, the first one, is more valuable, more profitable than B. That's just me with my business hat on. I get the argument of like, yeah, black children can see themselves in Captain America, but I think with the right Anthony Mack and everything that was going on, I think that they were well on their way of the Falcon being like one of the cooler top MCU characters, and so is getting, I think black children who want to see a major superhero get that. We're getting that with Falcon. I think they had built up something big. Where moving it to Captain America, you wander into the debate of, well, is that really the Captain America? He's a second Captain America. And again, not a big deal. But this is kind of the problem of these other identities come in. But your question is more about the multiverse and kind of these other things. Interestingly enough, that's the Avengers storyline that's going on right now. You have the Avengers and you have Avengers Forever. And Avengers Forever is they're gathering up the Avengers from the multiverse. You have like an army of Captain Americas and an army of Captain Marvels and an army of Thors, and you got all these alt versions of these characters, and it absolutely does diminish the uniqueness of the character. I think that's I think it's a negative for the comic. It's a negative for like Steve Rogers does not benefit by having 50 Steve Rogers. Now you could make the argument, in all the multiverse, Steve Rogers is the true Captain America, which actually kind of collides with what they're doing with the Falcon in a weird way. But that is what Avengers Forever right now is doing. It's like in every multiverse, there's a Steve Rogers who is a hero. And so you've got all these different versions of Steve Rogers running around. And I think that, to me, it's a negative. And I what caught my eye about your mail, because I've answered parts of this before, so what I think was unique about your mail was the idea that What If and Elseworlds sat in their own little universe and were good. Like you could pick up that story, you could get something completely different. It was anything could happen. That was one of the cooler things about What If, is that the characters could die, get blown up. You did not feel like the comic was safe. Anything could occur there, because it specifically wasn't in main continuity. So, who knows? Whatever. Just anything could happen. And that was a good thing. And with the merger of the stuff, you kind of lose two things. You lose that anything could happen, because it can't. Anything cannot happen. Not when you're in the main continuity. But you also send the subtle message of nothing bad is going to happen regardless. Because hell, if this Steve Rogers get killed, it's kind of like the Rick and Morty effect. It's like, I'll just go into another multiverse. I'll grab another Morty, and it'll be fine. So do you really care if Morty gets murdered in that show? Do you really care if Captain Marvel gets murdered? Because there's dozens, hundreds, thousands of Captain Marvels running around. So who cares? I think you lose the uniqueness, you lose the feeling of danger, and that anything can happen, and it feels like very little matters, because you can just replace stuff. And I like Rick and Morty as a show. I think it's funny. I don't know, the humor, it works for me. But I think that Rick and Morty as a way to build your universe is a terrible idea. I know a lot of comic writers are really big Rick and Morty fans. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's, there's at least a little bit of that goes on. That, fans of that show are writing the comics, and they like the whole multiverse. They like the aspect of like, I'll just go get another one. That's how it feels. Now, for what it's worth, to kind of, eat my words or sound a little hypocritical here for a minute, the recent issue of Avengers Forever, and I should do a full review of that. I'll give a shot at it. It features Carol. It's about Captain Marvel. And it may be one of the better Captain Marvel stories written in the last 5 years. And I'll do a review, ask you why. But it's actually really good. You're reading that going, oh my God, scrap the main title. Just do this. Do this one. This one's way more compelling. Anyway, Diaz-May, thank you for writing in. Thank you for your question. And most importantly, thanks for listening.